pituitary. Dr. Imad must have taken his first lecture of pituitary gland with the subsequent Dr. Al-Kapani's lecture. Now we are starting with the thyroid gland, and Dr. Nadir will take over as a clinical one. So thyroid gland, you all know about the thyroid. This thyroid gland is present in front of uh, the trachea, just below the thyroid cartilage, and it is a butterfly-shaped gland in front of trachea. It has two lobes, right and left lobe. Let me start with the pointer. So it has two lobes. One is this right lobe and left lobe, and it is combined together with the isthmus. It has a very rich blood supply by superior and inferior thyroid arteries, and they make a meshwork of blood supply, and they supply this thyroid both sides. On the back side of thyroid, there are four parathyroid glands, which we are not going to discuss now. Uh, Grossly, this thyroid is a very smooth, shining brown in color, and uh, weighs about 35 grams. Histologically, if you cut the thyroid, it forms follicles, multiple follicles, and they are lined by cuboidal epithelium. These follicles are filled with thyroglobulin, and you know that this thyroglobulin makes the thyroid hormone, right? So th there are 20 to 30 follicles in one group, and there are multiple groups in a thyroid gland, and they have an extensive, rich blood supply so that the thyroid hormone can easily be taken from this follicle to the area where they had to go. And they are really bounded by the supply of thyroid stimulating hormone. And when this hormone secretes, they try to make more and more hormones. Okay, so this is a high power view of that thyroid follicle, and this is filled with colloid material, and this is lined by cuboidal or low columnar epithelium. Now, for example, this is one follicle, and we have taken this picture and we have enlarged here. So just to make you understand, this is one thyroid follicle cell. This is the nucleus, this is cytoplasm, and this is rough endoplasmic reticulum, right? This one. Let me change it to the, no, it's not changing. I don't know why. So this is one and rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the function of this rough endoplasmic reticulum is to form this thyroglobulin. And this thyroglobulin, when it is formed, they are taken in the uh, inside the follicle or the lumen as a process of exocytosis. So this thyroglobulin then start accumulating in the follicular area. Now they wait for iodine to come, and they attach here uh, in these terminals and form monoiodo, diiodo, tetraiodothyronine, and thyroxine. Now, on the other hand, what happened that the iodine which we eat, usually they are taken up by the intestine, and from the intestine it enters into the blood circulation, and then from the blood it is taken up uh, to this thyroid cell, follicle cell, by this symporter which is called sodium iodine symporter. So they take one iodine with one sodium molecule inside the thyroid cell, thyrocyte, and then this iodine as an iodide push into the follicle, lumen of the follicle, as an iodide form through this pendrin. Now this iodine go and attach with this thyroglobulin, which are tyrosine. So one molecule Now, one thing more important is this iodide form convert into iodine by peroxidase enzyme, which is present inside. So this peroxidase changes from iodide into iodine, and then this iodine goes attached to the tyrosine molecule to form monoiodo, diiodo, and when two diiodo they form tetraiodo or thyroxine, or one yeah, monoiodo and one diiodotyrosine, they form uh, triiodothyronine. So triiodothyronine is T3 and tetraiodothyronine is T4, which is thyroxine. Then they wait for the signal of TSH. So TSH is actually controlling the whole thyroid hormone, and when they need this hormone to go out and do their function, they attach to the receptor. As you know, that is this. First of all, there is a secretion from the hypothalamus as a thyrotropin releasing hormone. They stimulate pituitary gland to secrete thyroid stimulating hormone, and this thyroid stimulating hormone they attach to the receptor of the thyroid follicle cell, and this follicular cell then start secreting as the uh, as endocytosis. This the T3 and T4 go out and move into the blood circulation. Then it goes where the hormone is needed. Okay, so this is the whole cycle, which probably you know it. This is all physiology. Now let's see what happens when it reaches to the target cell. So this picture shows that the thyrotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus stimulates pituitary gland. This pituitary secretes TSH, which go and attach to the thyroid stimulating receptor. And this receptor activate this G protein. This G protein convert GTP into GDP, and this GTP then causes activation of cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP then stimulate the thyroid follicle to secrete thyroxine or T3. Now, when T3 and T4 from the blood goes to the target cell, and this target, every cell has their receptor, where this T3, T4 go and attach to the receptor, and then they translocate into the nucleus, where they change the gene expression. And what happens? Most of the thyroid hormone they are bound, means they are bound with either protein, which is albumin, or transthyretin. So they are bound. Only free T3 and T4 are there, which is really active. And what they do, they go and attach to the receptors, bind to the nuclear receptor, change the gene expression as I showed you, and then they cause increased carbohydrate and fat breakdown. So there will be a catabolism of the carbohydrate and the fat, and these two cause energy or give energy to the patient, a person, and it also stimulate protein synthesis. So protein is being formed, and there is a catabolism or energy is being taken from carbohydrate and fat. So carbohydrate and fat are being utilized, and protein is conserved and they are formed in the cell. So this is the main function of a thyroid hormone. Now, by doing this catabolism, they cause increased basal metabolic rate, right? Increased basal metabolic rate. By this, energy is being developed in the person. This is a normal physiology. Now, suppose if you see in this picture, this is a thyroid gland, and this thyroid. So suppose something is going wrong in this area, means in thyroid area. Either it is hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. We call it primary, right? This is primary. If suppose something is gone wrong with this pituitary, we call it secondary. And if suppose something goes wrong in the hypothalamus, then we call it tertiary. So because tertiary hypothalamus secrete thyrotropin releasing hormone, which activate pituitary to secrete TSH. So if TSH is not secreting, it does not stimulate thyroid to secrete thyroid hormone. So the problem is in pituitary, we call it secondary. Or if there is a problem here, we'll call it tertiary. But if suppose This is okay. Pituitary gland is secreting TSH, but thyroid is not producing the hormone. Then we call it as a, uh, primary one, because the problem is on a thyroid gland itself, not in the pituitary or in the hypothalamus. Okay, so suppose if the ample amount of thyroid gland is producing thyroid hormone, it goes give feedback to the pituitary gland and also to the hypothalamus not to secrete more thyrotropin releasing hormone. So it's a complete feedback mechanism which stops secretion of TRH, TSH, and no further release of thyroid hormone. Okay, now thyroid, we have multiple different functions like hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, non-neoplastic disease, and neoplasia. So today we'll be discussing hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism and non-neoplastic disease, and and on Sunday we'll be discussing the tumors of the thyroid. Okay, starting with the hyperthyroid, because this is bit lengthy topic, I'll be going little faster so that we can complete the lecture. Hyperthyroidism means increase in the thyroid hormone. Thyroid toxicosis is a hypermetabolic state caused by elevated circulating level of free T3 and T4. So free T3, T4 levels are high, and as you know, T3 and free T4 are the active form of thyroid hormone. Most commonly by hyperfunctioning of the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is causing hyperfunctioning to secrete more and more thyroid hormone, referred to as hyperthyroidism. So these two conditions, thyrotoxicosis and hyperthyroidism, they actually goes together. Simultaneously, you can use the term hyperthyroidism or you can use the term uh, uh, thyrotoxicosis. Now, what are the different association with this? If you classify it, which is associated with hyperthyroidism, we can divide into primary, secondary, and tertiary. So, in primary hyperthyroidism, uh, diffuse toxic hypoplasia, which is called Grave disease, is the most commonest thing which can cause this one, and this form almost more than 80% of the cases of diffuse hyperplasia of the thyroid. Then hyperfunctioning toxic multinodular goiter. In multinodular goiter, basically it is not hyperfunctioning, but what happens that only one follicle or two follicles they become toxic, and they start signaling or secreting extra amount of thyroid hormone, and which causes hyperfunctioning. Then hyperfunctioning toxic adenoma. Adenomas are the benign tumors of the thyroid. Usually, more than 80% they are cold or non-active one, but some of the adenoma become more active and start secreting the hormones. So they are called active or toxic adenomas. Then iodine-induced hyperthyroidism should give exogenous iodine to these patient. They start secreting more and more thyroid hormone. The neonatal thyrotoxicosis associated with the maternal grave disease. For example, if mother has grave disease, uh, this thyroid hormone can cross placenta, so they can actually give the same thing to the fetus. So but as the baby is born, usually this hyperthyroidism slowly and gradually come down, and baby becomes normal within 6 months of time. In secondary, TS secretion secreting pituitary adenoma, sometimes the benign tumor of the pituitary, they start secreting excessive amount of TSH, and this TSH go and stimulate thyroid gland to secrete more and more thyroid hormone. Then not associated with hyperthyroidism, so there are four conditions like granulomatous decurrence thyroiditis, which is really painful. Then the other one is subacute lymphocytic thyroiditis, which is painless. Then we have struma uri, which we have already discussed 2 days ago in teratomas. So they actually sometimes cause they have an ectopic a thyroid gland, and they secrete more and more thyroid. There was a case in which a lady was having excessive hyperthyroidism, and when the clinician see her thyroid gland was absolutely normal, then they go for MRI and other investigation, and finally they saw that there is a tumor in the ovary. When they open it, it was actually struma ovari, which was actually secreting. So you had to keep all these thing in mind, that where this actual thyroid hormone is coming from. Fictitious thyrotoxicosis, and if you give exogenous thyroxine intake, and this thyroid intake, if it is mismanaged, sometimes it causes hyperthyroidism. So the clinical feature of hyperthyroidism, as we have already mentioned, that it is the hypermetabolic state causing increase in the thyroid hormone. So it causes, for example, for heart, it causes positive inotropic and chronotropic effect, by which they have increase in the cardiac output, so increased pulse, tachycardia, palpitation, cardiomegaly, arrhythmias, and atrial fibrillation. So they stimulate heart more. So these are the changes which you see clinically. In neuromuscular, there is a tremor or emotional liabilities. These are actually sympathetic activities or increased sympathetic activities. So if you ask this patient to straighten their arm and keep the finger apart, this finger will be showing tremors in the fingers. So tremors are emotional liability. These patients, if you see them, for example, this lady, the picture which I'm showing, looks as a staring gaze, as they are staring you. They are actually not, but they have a look like that. And lid lag, they don't, if you ask the patient to sit down, I will show you how it looks like. They are normally, if you put your finger and ask me to sit down, my upper eyelid will go or move with the eyeball. But these patient, they does not. The eyelid remain up and they move the eyeball down. The skin will be warm and moist because uh, the excessive cardiac output plus sympathetic activity, there is a dilatation of the blood vessels and excessive amount of blood in the periphery. So the skin will be more warm, moist. In intestine, there is hypermotility and diarrhea. So these patients had, and this is also sympathetic activity. And the skeletal will show osteoporosis. And there is a term which is called thyroid storm. What happens that sometimes there is excessive secretion of thyroid hormone. That is really dangerous for the patient, and even they can kill the patient. This is called thyroid storm. Now, how to check the hyperthyroidism? So we usually take two things. One is TSH and other is T4. The TSH uh, the TSH, when it secrete, it causes excessive amount of T4 hormones to go out. So if you just plot this thing, TSH and T4, so if you see, if TSH is normal and T4 is also normal, so this is called euthyroid. Euthyroid means the thyroid gland is absolutely normal. TSH normal, T4 normal, so it is called euthyroid, means there is no problem in the thyroid gland. It's working very fine. Now, if it is TSH is low, but T4 is high, it is called primary hyperthyroidism. TSH low means pituitary is not signaling the thyroid gland to secrete T4, but thyroid gland itself is secreting more and more thyroxine. This is called primary hyperthyroidism, right? So in these patients, if you go and see the TSH level, it will be 0.01, because of the excess of the thyroid hormone, our feedback is going to the pituitary not to give more TSH. So the pituitary gland has stopped secreting TSH. But as there is a problem in the thyroid gland, It is not responsible for TSH to stimulate it, and it is making their own thyroid hormone. So this is called primary hyperthyroidism. In the other side, when TSH is high and T4 is also high, it is called secondary or tertiary hyperthyroidism. Why? Definitely, there is some problem in TSH. Either it is pituitary adenoma or something in the hypothalamus. TSH is secreting more and more. So TSH is high, and this is asking the thyroid gland to secrete more and more thyroxine. So you had hyperthyroidism. So this is called secondary or tertiary hyperthyroidism. Thyroid is secreting hormone because it is receiving a signal from pituitary gland. So this is secondary or tertiary. Suppose if TSH is high and the thyroid hormone is low, T4 is low, it is called primary hypothyroidism. Although pituitary is asking thyroid to secrete more and more thyroid hormone, but the thyroid gland itself is not secreting the thyroid hormone, means there is a problem in the thyroid hormone. Okay, in a thyroid gland which is not producing and causing hypothyroidism, which is primary hypothyroidism. There is a problem in the thyroid gland itself. For example, if TSH is low, Ta4 is also low. This is also secondary hypothyroidism. Why? Because TSH is low, it's not stimulating thyroid, and thyroid itself is not producing the thyroid hormone. So this is called secondary hypothyroidism. So this one was a primary hyperthyroidism in which TSH was signaling thyroid gland to secrete more hormone, but because of the problem in a thyroid gland itself, it was a primary one. So TSH will be high if you see in the blood, it will be more, but there will be less amount of T3 to 4. In a uh, secondary and tertiary hypothyroidism, what will happen? The TSH will be low as there is a problem in a pituitary or in a hypothalamus. It is not signaling or asking the thyroid gland to secrete thyroid hormone, and that thyroid hormone itself is not producing it, so it is secondary or tertiary hypothyroidism. There are two other uh, clinical syndrome, which is called subclinical hyperthyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism, in which there is slight increase in TSH, and or there is a low TSH, but still thyroid is producing more hyperthyroidism, but they are subclinical. It is not that much high. So these two conditions are subclinical hypothyroidism or subclinical hyperthyroidism. So they are secreting more TSH, but thyroid is not giving up the thyroid hormone. So they are subclinical hypo. And if it is TSH is low, but still it is producing thyroid hormone, so it is called subclinical. So that there is a slightly increase in T4 or slightly decrease in T4 level in these patients in hypo and hyper 1. I hope you have understood this all things. So this is called lid lag. For example, if you put the finger in front of the eye and ask the patient to see the finger without tilting the head. So if I do it, you can see that my upper eyelid will go along with the eye, and but this patient, the upper lid is not moving with the finger. So this is called lid lag. So because there is a problem in the eyeball. So we will discuss this thing when we will be discussing Graves' disease. Now, hypothyroidism is caused by any structure or functional derangement that interferes with the production of adequate amount of thyroid hormone. So thyroid gland is not actually producing ample amount of thyroid hormone. The prevalence of overt hypothyroidism is 0.3%, so very low. But if you add subclinical hypothyroidism, it becomes more than 4%. There is tenfold more common in women than in men, and it results from defect anywhere in the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis. So either problem in the hypothalamus or problem in the pituitary or in the axis, thyroid axis. So what are the causes of hypothyroidism? And the primary hyperthyroidism is a developmental problem. The thyroid dysgenesis means there is a mutation of PAX8 or FOXE1 or a thyroid stimulating receptor mutation, hormone receptor mutation, which causes problem in forming the thyroid hormone itself. The other one is thyroid hormone resistance syndrome, in which the thyroid gland is normal. They are actually forming a good amount of thyroxine. The thyroxine is going out from the thyroid gland, traveling in the blood, but the targeted cell, which has a receptor, is not responding. So in these patients, if you go and see what will happen, they will be having either normal uh, T3, T4 level, but the patient is not responding and showing hypothyroidism. And probably TSH will be low because normally or normal because TSH is normal, thyroid hormone is normal, but there is a problem in the receptor which is causing this problem. Then post-ablative means uh, the surgeon has taken out the whole thyroid because of the grave disease, a problem in the thyroid, or they have given radioactive iodine to kill the thyroid cells because of hyperthyroidism, and majority of the cells are killed. So hypothyroidism developed, or external radiation which kills the thyrocyte, which does not develop one. Then we have autoimmune hypothyroidism. Hashimoto is one of the best example of that. That they secrete antibodies which kills the uh, thyroid follicles and thyrocytes, and hypothyroidism occur. We will discuss it just now. Iodine deficiency, if there are areas where there is less amount of iodine is produced or taken in, so because of less amount of iodine, the less amount of hormone is produced. Drugs like lithium iodide, paramino-salicylic acid, these are the drugs which can cause hypothyroidism, congenital biosynthesis defect, or disharmonic genetic defect. If you recall the first picture which I was showing in the whole physiology of that, what happened in a disharmonic genetic one, that either the iodine which are been taken up. There are two things: either thyroglobulin is not being produced from the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Suppose if it is producing and it is present in the follicular lumen, the iodine which is taken up, there is a problem in symporter, sodium iodine symporter, to take the iodine in the follicle. Suppose if the iodine is taken in, the iodine which is in the iodide form cannot be changed into iodine form by peroxidase. So there is a problem in a peroxidase. And when it is not changed into iodine form, it is not attached to tyrosine to form monoiodo or diiodo, uh, thyronine, or T3 or T4. So there is a problem in somewhere in that whole structure to cause to form this thyroid hormone. Then secondary, which is pituitary failure, or tertiary hypothalamic failure. So this is very rare, but just pituitary failure we have seen, because if there is a pituitary adenoma, that can cause something wrong with the pituitary. The clinical feature of the hypothyroidism, if you see this patient, it has what you call moon-like face, which is called Bixedema type face, and there is accumulation of glucose aminoglycan inside or beneath the subcutaneous tissue, and all over the body. And these patients are slowing of the mind and body because of the low thyroid hormone. The mental level become down, they become slow, and they sit like, they are confused. It doesn't have anything. Myxedema, if you see the face, the subcutaneous tissue is infiltrated by the glucosaminoglycan, and sometimes looks like a moon face. And deepened voice, and the heart, as it has actually the reverse of all uh, of the hyperthyroidism. So in hyperthyroidism, the pulse was fast, but here there will be slowing of the pulse. Uh, Gastrointestinal tract, there was hypermotility and diarrhea. Here there is constipation because sympathetic activity goes down. The skin will be dry, cool, pale, and cold intolerance. In hyperthyroidism, it was warm, moist, sweating, and in that one, it was heat intolerance. Here it is in cold intolerance, delay reflex, and mixed edema of the face and comas. If you don't treat these patients slowly and gradually, the mental level become down and down, and finally the patient will go in coma. So there is accumulation of matrix substance, which is glucose aminoglycan and hyaluronic acid in the skin. Subcutaneous tissue cause non-petic edema. There will be broadening and coarse facial features like this one. So this is another picture. You see, these are the same female. This is affected hypothyroid female, and you see the big edema, moon-like face, and subcutaneous tissue glucose aminoglycan are accumulated, and as she was given a treatment, thyroxine was given slowly and gradually. All the things were dissolved, and now she looks like this one. So this is actually a normal-looking female change into myxedema face like this one. Okay. There is another condition which is called congenital hypothyroidism, in which there is iodine deficiency or genetic problem to these children, and the symptoms are mild to severe depending how much a decrease in the thyroxine level. So the treatment for this one is thyroid hormone replacement. So if you give thyroid hormone, they will become all right. Cretinism, this is a counterpart of myxedema. So myxedema occurs in the older people, and cretinism usually affects the uh, children. And cretinism refer to a hypothyroidism that develop in infancy and childhood. Cretin means Christ-like. So because of hypothyroidism, these children become mentally retarded. So they don't do the activity as a normal child usually do. You see, normal children, they don't sit in one place, they run here and there, they do all the things, and they are very hyperactive. But these child which is low mental level, they usually go and sit in one place. So and they don't do any activities, or yeah, they are not hyperactive. So they call it cretin child, like trust like Christ-like, because they don't do any, it does not perform any sin, so they are incapable of doing that. So the commonly seen in the area of dietary iodine deficiency in an endemic area such as Himalayas, Island, China, Africa, or other mountainous area like Alps in Europe. So you can have because there is these in mountainous area, there is usually a deficiency of iodine. So it has become much less frequent as a result of widespread supplementation of the food with iodine. So nowadays they are including iodine in many of the food products, like in salt. They add iodine in the iodide salts are available. Clinical features in creatine impair development of skeletal system and central nervous system, manifested by a severe mental retardation. So these are mentally retarded child. They have a short stature, coarse facial features. They have protruded tongue and umbilical hernia. If there is a maternal thyroid deficiency before the development of thyroid gland, when the child is intrauterine, the mental retardation is severe. For example, if the female is a pregnant woman which has a problem, hypothyroidism, and the baby inside has not developed the thyroid gland, uh, in his own thyroid gland, so the mental deformity will be more, the mental retardation will be more. But in contrast, reduction in maternal thyroid hormone later in the pregnancy, when the fetal thyroid has developed, so allow normal brain development. So if suppose female develops hypothyroidism after the fetus has already developed its own thyroid tissue, so then the child will not be having a brain retardation as it was there when it was not. This is how it looks like. You see broadened frontal area, coarse facial features, broadened cheeks, and they are usually dwarf. They are not small in height. Now we come to thyroiditis. There are four thyroiditis. One is thyroiditis by inflammation of the thyroid gland, Hashimoto thyroiditis, Decavan thyroiditis, lymphocytic thyroiditis, and fibrosing or renal thyroiditis. So we'll first start with the Hashimoto thyroiditis. Hashimoto thyroiditis, actually, as the name says, is the most common cause of hypothyroidism in an area where iodine level is sufficient. As we said that when iodine level is less and hypothyroidism, it, you can say that. But in Hashimoto, these occur in the area where there is a normal amount of iodine available. It is derived from 1912 by Hashimoto, describing patient with a goiter and intense lymphocytic infiltrate. So in the previous days, it was called struma lymphomatosa, but now we call it as Hashimoto thyroiditis. What happens? The commonest cause of hypothyroidism in US, the female is to male ratio is 10:1, and basically there is autoimmune destruction of the thyroid gland. So there is autoimmune problem which goes on in the female or male, whatever, but female are more common. So they say that there's a polymorphism of a gene cytotoxic T lymphocyte associated gene CTLA4 and protein tyrosine phosphatase 22 or PTPN22. So there is a polymorphism of these T genes, two genes, which causes this process to occur. So what happened? It causes a breakdown in self-tolerance to thyroid autoantigen. It is exemplified by the presence of circulating antibody against thyroglobulin and thyroid peroxidase. So antibodies are being produced and which attack the thyroglobulin and the thyroid cells also, the thyroid peroxidase. So what happens? Accompanied by progressive depletion of thyrocyte and replacement of thyroid parenchyma by mononuclear cell infiltrate and fibrosis. So more and more thyroid follicular cells are being damaged and they are replaced by either fibrosis or infiltration, mononuclear infiltration. What happened? Three important things. There's multiple immunological mechanism may contribute thyroid cell death, including CD8 cytotoxic T cell mediated cell death. So CD8 directly attack to the thyrocyte and kill it, number one. Number two, T cell activation leading to production of TSH lymphocyte cytokines such as interferon gamma cause recruitment and activation of macrophage and damage to the follicle. So this is indirect way. Th1 secretes cytokine, gamma interferon. Gamma interferon recruit more and more macrophages, and they activate that macrophage, and that activated macrophage kill the thyrocyte. And the third one is binding of the anti-thyroid antibodies into the anti-thyroglobulin or anti-peroxidase antibodies, followed by antibody-dependent cell-mediated cytotoxicity. So I can explain with this chart. So in the first one, this CD8 cytotoxic T cells, they directly attack to the thyrocyte by FAS-L-FAS ligand, and they directly kill this thyrocyte. In the second one, this CD4-TH1 cell, they secrete gamma interferon, which recruit more and more macrophages, and they activate this macrophage, and this macrophage then kill the thyrocyte. If you remember my lecture in POD, this gamma interferon was activating macrophage, and they are converting into which cell? Anybody in a class? Activated macrophage in tuberculosis. What was this called?
Histiocyte.
Sorry?
Histiocyte.
No. They are called, yes, anybody else?
Epithelioid cells.
Epithelioid cells, right. So this epithelioid cells, basically, these macrophages are being activated by gamma interferon, and they kill bacteria, tubercular bacteria. Here they are killing the thyrocyte. Now the third one is the plasma cell. They are secreting antibodies. So there are two antibodies. antibody against peroxidase, antibody against thyroglobulin. So they attach to the thyrocyte, and then antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxic this NK cell, they then attach with the FC receptor and they kill the thyrocyte. So all of these basically they are killing this thyrocyte, and as the thyrocytes are being killed, more and more accumulation of lymphocyte and macrophages accumulate. So if you see the microscopic picture of this one, this is normal looking some thyroid follicles with this lymphoid follicle. So large amount of lymphocyte are being accumulated in this thyroid gland, and they are killing the thyrocyte. So slowly and gradually, what happened that this one, uh, I don't know why I'm not able to change this. There is a problem otherwise. So this is follicular cells, right? And these follicular cells, the lymphoid follicles, you know that when excess amount of lymphocytes are accumulated in one area, they make a tertiary lymphoid follicle. And these tertiary lymphoid follicle, they started producing lymphocyte there and then, right? So they are producing more and more lymphocyte. The whole area is been lymphocyte are being produced, and they kill more and more thyrocyte. And the other thing which is very important along with this lymphoid follicle, the thyrocyte change itself into Hurder cell. What is Hurder cell? If you see these cells, they have a rounded nuclei and abundant granular eosinophilic cytoplasm. So these cells are being seen in Hashimoto thyroiditis. These are the diagnostic feature of Hashimoto thyroid. So if you see lymphoid follicle and if you see these Hurdle cells, then you call this thing as Hashimoto thyroiditis. So in clinical features, they have a painless enlargement of thyroid, some degree of hypothyroidism, symmetrical or diffuse enlargement of thyroid gland. So most of them, they are female. Hash means confused, and myxoedema means moon-like face or potato. They are called Mrs. Potato Head. So they have large head, as I have shown you in the picture. This is the second entity, which is called subacute granulomatous thyroiditis. They are also called decurvent thyroiditis. Most commonly, they are seen in between the age of 40 and 50, affect female considerably more than male, that is 4:1. They are actually show a recent upper respiratory tract infection. This is important. And they are self-limiting. If you don't treat them, they become all right by themselves. So it is believed that they are triggered by a viral infection. Because of that upper respiratory infection, virus comes in, and the majority of the patient have a history of upper respiratory infection because before thyroiditis occurs. So this disease has association with Coxsackie virus, mumps virus, measles, adenovirus, and other viral illnesses. So what happens that this viruses leads to exposure to the viral or thyroid antigen, which is released secondary to the virus-induced host tissue damage. So this viruses which causes tissue damage, this tissue actually releases the thyroid antigen, and this thyroid antigen causes stimulates the cytotoxic T lymphocyte, which then damage the thyroid follicular cells. Okay, so this virus induces damage to the thyrocyte. This thyrocyte secretes RX, leads to thyroid antigen, and this antigen stimulate cytotoxic T lymphocyte, and this cytotoxic T lymphocyte damages the cells. So the gland may be unilateral or bilaterally enlarged. They are firm with the intact capsule. On cut section, the involved area are firm in yellow white. Usually the thyroid gland, as you have shown you the first picture, it is brownish in color and they are shining one. So when they are involved by this, it becomes yellow white. So you can easily demarcate that this area has been involved. So they are stand out from the more rubbery normal brown thyroid substance. Histologically, early in the active phase, scattered follicle may be entirely disrupted or replaced by the neutrophils. So you can see a lot of neutrophils in the follicles because in the acute inflammation, you see neutrophils first. After that, you see aggregate of lymphocyte, activated macrophages, plasma cell about the collapsed or damaged follicles. So as these cells are coming more and more, they are then accumulated. You can see also multinucleated giant cells, which is really important, enclose the pool of colloid, hence designated as granulomatous thyroiditis. In the later stage, you can see more and more chronic inflammatory infiltrate and fibrosing, replacing the area. So this is how it looks like. These are the multinucleated giant cell. This is thyroid follicle. This is another multinucleated giant cell. And these are all lymphocyte. These are plasma cells. And this is a macrophage. So it's actually a combination of lymphocyte, macrophage, multinucleated giant cells, right? So that's why they are called multi decurvence thyroiditis. Clinical course, the granulomatous thyroiditis is most common cause of thyroid pain. So if somebody comes to you with a painful thyroiditis, you first think of decurvence thyroiditis. There is a variable enlargement of the thyroid gland. The thyroid inflammation and hyperthyroidism are transient. Usually they diminish after 2 to 6 weeks if even treatment is not given. Normally, the patient have a high T3, T4 levels and low TSH level during the active phase. And after recovery, generally 6 to 8 weeks, the thyroid hormones comes to normal. Now, the other one is subacute or painless thyroiditis. Now, in this condition, the thyroid gland is, this thyroiditis is painless. You don't have any pain. Come to the clinical attention by mild hyperthyroidism, goitrous enlargement of the thyroid. The female comes to you that now she feels thyroid there, but it is painless. It is often seen in middle-aged women and occur during after during the postpartum period, means after the delivery, these female usually develop goitrous enlargement. So they are also called postpartum thyroiditis. Except for a possible of mild symmetric enlargement, the thyroid appears normal in a gross appearance. Histologically consists of lymphocytic infiltrate with hyperplastic germinal center within the thyroid parenchyma and patchy disruption of the collapsed thyroid follicle. Unlike in Hashimoto's, now the difference between this painless thyroiditis and Hashimoto is you don't see fibrosis and you don't see Hurdle cell in this thyroiditis. So this is how it looks like. You see lot of lymphocyte around. You can see damaged thyrocyte, but you don't see Hurdle cells, which is having a granular eosinophilic cytoplasm and rounded nuclei. So Hurdle cell actually is the peculiarity and a difference between these two thyroiditis. Clinical features, the individual can present as a painless thyroiditis, a goiter, and transient or overt hyperthyroidism, or you can see both of them. Some patient has transition from the hyperthyroid straight to hypothyroid. So initially they are hyperthyroid, and then as more and more thyrocyte are being killed, now they become hypothyroid before they recover. A vast majority, mean 80%, usually the postpartum thyroiditis, they become euthyroid in 1 year. So after, because it is because of the postpartum, the thyroid has increased. So after 1 year time, the thyroid become normal. As many of third of the affected individual eventually progress to overt hypothyroidism. So if it is not postpartum thyroiditis, if there is another cause, then slowly and gradually what happens that the thyroid is damaging. So less and less amount of thyroid will be present to secrete thyroid hormone. So they become hypothyroid in 10 years time. The last one is the fibrosing riddle thyroiditis, also called riddle thyroiditis. They are rare disorders of unknown etiology. The important thing is extensive fibrosing involving thyroid and contiguous structures. So the fibrous tissue is so much proliferation that actually the effect and they involve the surrounding structure. They are rock hard neck mass. Clinically, they simulate carcinoma of thyroid, and that's the important thing for that. And usually, because of the excessive fibrosis, they also compresses the trachea. So, it is important because, you have to differentiate this with the thyroid carcinoma. This is how it looks like. There is a damaged thyroid follicles excessive amount of inflammatory cells, and these are the fibrous tissue involvement. Now, the grave disease, it's very important, as Hashimoto thyroiditis causes hypothyroidism. Grave disease causes the hyperthyroidism. It is also an autoimmune thyroid disorder characterized by violent or long continued palpitation in a female associated with enlargement of the thyroid gland itself. It has a triad, means hyperthyroidism due to diffuse hyperfunctioning enlargement of the thyroid. The number two is infiltrative exophthalmos, means exophthalmos is there, the eye protruded out. And third is localized infiltrative dermopathy, so-called pretibial myxedema, which is present only on a less amount of people. So there is anti-TSH receptor antibody. They stimulate thyroid growth, causes T4 release, and react to the retroorbital tissue and skin of the legs. The peak incidence is about 20 to 40 years of age. The women are affected 10 times more common than the men. This disorder is said to be present in 1.5 to 2% of the female in the United States. The concordance rate is of in the monozygote twin is 30% to 40% as compared to less than 5% among the dizygote. Again, we have a susceptibility has been linked to polymorphism of immune function gene like CTLA4 and PTP and 22, as we have seen in Hashimoto. So Hashimoto and grave disease, they are basically an autoimmune diseases. Hashimoto causes hypothyroidism. Grave disease causes hyperthyroidism. So how it occurs? It is characterized by breakdown of self-tolerance to the thyroid antigen, most importantly the TSH receptor. So there are three antibodies. One is thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin. In this Ig antibody binds to the thyroid receptor and mimics the action of TSH. Although it is antibody attached to the receptor TSH, and it mimics like TSH, so they stimulate adenyl cyclase and increase release of thyroid hormone. Number one. Number two, thyroid growth stimulating immunoglobulin. These antibodies are directed against thyroid receptor again, and they causes thyroid growth stimulating immunoglobulin having been implicated in proliferation of thyroid follicle. So these immunoglobulin causes proliferation of the thyroid follicles. The third one is TSH binding inhibitor immunoglobulin. They causes inhibition of TSH to come up there. So they are anti-TSH receptor antibody, prevent TSH from binding the normal to the receptor on the receptor epithelium, mimic the action of TSH. Although they are not allowing TSH to bind there, but they mimic TSH activity, resulting in stimulation of the thyroid epithelial to activate more. So all of the three antibodies, basically they are increasing the activity of the thyroid gland. What happens in exophthalmos, in this Graves one, there is marked infiltration of retroorbital space by mononuclear cells, by T lymphocyte. Because of this antibody, they are directed against the in the eye, and they are causing this changes. Number one, retroorbital space filled with mononuclear cells, which is T lymphocyte, the inflammatory edema and swelling of the extraocular muscles. Also, they pushes the eye outside. Accumulation of extracellular matrix like glucosaminoglykans such as hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate. Increased number of adipocyte also present behind the eyeball. So all these changes actually pushes the eyeball up. So remember one thing: if you have exophthalmos, means you are dealing with grave disease. The other condition like toxic adenoma or hyperfunctioning multinodular goiter, they don't produce exophthalmos. Remember, exophthalmos is a peculiarity of grave disease. If it is not grave disease, there will not be exophthalmos. Remember, however, there is hyperthyroidism, but there will be no exophthalmos there. Okay, so the thyroid gland is usually symmetrically enlarged because of the diffuse hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the thyroid follicles. On cut sectioning, the parenchyma has a soft meaty appearance resembling normal meat. If you remember, we have seen the thyroid gland, which is glistening and brown in color. Here it looks as a meaty appearance. Physiologically, the follicular epithelium in untreated cases are tall, columnar and crowding one. The crowding often results in formation of papillae. In a papillary are formed, project into the lumen, encroaching into the colloid. But these papillae does not have fibrovascular core as you see in other papillaries, and there is scallop margins of the colloid. There is infiltration of lymphoid or predominant T cells in the surrounding structure. So this is how it looks like. If you see this thyroid gland, it is not that much shining as I have shown you in the first picture. It looks like dim and meaty appearance. And why it is looking like that? Because all of the colloid has been extracted from here, and it is all been utilized to form thyroxine hormone. So this is a logical picture. You see these follicles. Some are follicles are proliferating one, and they are forming a papillary, which is coming into the follicular lumen, but they does not have the stalk as you see in a papillary one. They have this colloid material. You see they are scalloped one, eaten up, because more and more colloid are being used to produce thyroglobulin, thyroid hormone. So there is lack in this one. The color of the colloid is pale in color, and if you see there is a lot of lymphocytic infiltrate in the stroma. So these are the logical hallmark of uh, thyroid gland. Okay, this is exophthalmos. You see the eyeball is pushed out, and you see a staring gauge, and this is pretibial edema. And finally, a few words about the goiter. Basically, goiter means enlargement of the thyroid, and there is a defect. Either you have a iodine deficiency or there are other defects. So if there is no iodine or enzymatic defect, as we have discussed already, they call decrease in T4 level and increase in TSH, because body is continuously the pituitary gland is continuously secreting TSH to make more and more thyroxine. Because of the iodine deficiency or some goitrogenic vegetable, the thyroid is not secreting the hormone out, so it is accumulating in the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland is increasing in size. So these are all vegetable which can cause, they are called goitrogens, which can cause this change. And this is how it looks like in an initial phase, a small increase in the thyroid gland. And this is in a later stage, when it become multinodular goiter, the size of the thyroid gland becomes that much. So this was all about the thyroid gland. Next time, inshallah, we'll be discussing about the thyroid tumor. Any questions? If you have, please, because I have probably exceeded the time. So, okay, take your questions, and when I'll start my lecture of tumors, ask the question of this one. I'll discuss there. Thank you very much.